Hello, grades 3, 4, and 5. Happy New Year, and I hope you had a wonderful Christmas vacation. I had thought we might get to be together for this lesson, but I'm hoping that on everything we go through today that you'll understand completely. Feel free to send me a quick email or a message if there's any confusion about anything. I thought what might be a good idea is to start with reviewing some of the things we did. I know the last little while we spent working on our bells and our singing for Christmas, which you guys were doing a terrific job at. Don't say goodbye to the bells. We're going to get a little more opportunity to use them, and I'll send a notice home that we're going to, in the next little while, I was hoping to start beginning of February perhaps, begin to introduce the ukuleles, and then we'll add a few instruments together at the same time. Let's go back to where some of the things are that we learned just before we got into our final rehearsals for the Christmas musical. One of the last things that we talked about is the staff. And what the staff was, if you remember, you guys each had jobs of putting some notes either on lines or spaces. And this is where all the positioning goes for reading notes. Now, the interesting thing about music is it's called a universal language. And the reason it's called that is that if you took your staff with the notes written on it, you could travel all over the world. You could give that to somebody to read, and they would understand it and be able to duplicate the sound as easily as you could, even though, say it was in Japan, you couldn't speak Japanese and they could not speak English. You still could sit down and play a piece of music together, because reading notes on a staff and reading music is universal language. So that's the cool thing about learning to read music. So we had talked about reading music on the staff. The staff consists of 5 lines, which create 4 spaces. And of course, on that is where we put our notes. Now, let's just do a quick review. I have a little drum here that I'd like to use today for some of the note values. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up the note value, the note, and we will count the value, okay, of that note. And remember how you clapped and you would hold it for the number of beats? I'll actually play the actual number of beats in total on my little drums here, okay? So I've got my little drumsticks. So who remembers what this is called? I am a quarter note and I get 1 beat. All right. Now, next we have the half note. I am a half note and I get 2 beats. 1, 2. All righty. Now, let's go to the very creatively named dotted half note. And a dotted half note is worth 3 beats. I am a dotted half note and I get 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. Good. Alrighty, and then the big guy, the whole note. Looks like an egg. I am a whole note and I get 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. Okay, and then of course we have these notes. This is what they look like. They stand alone. We very often see them walking in pairs, and they're called eighth notes, and they're quick notes. So I am an eighth note and I am a quick note. Or we're a pair of eighth notes and we are quick notes. All right, so let's try that once more, and this time I will clap with you, okay? I am a quarter note and I'm worth 1 beat. 1. Good. I am a half note and I'm worth 2 beats. 1, 2. Good. And then I am a dotted half note and I'm worth 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. And then the whole notes. I am a whole note and I'm worth 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, let's do eighth notes. I am a pair of eighth notes and I'm worth quick beat. Good. Okay, now it's important that you know that and that we needed to review that because I am going to send home a worksheet this week for you. And on the bottom actually has music math, which I think we did before, okay? All right, but I'll explain that a little further, but that's why I wanted to review that. All right, so remember we talked about notes and note values and where they actually sit on a staff. Now, let's do a quick review of the actual note names. Remember, the musical alphabet has 7 letters, and we're going to go from C to C. So that'll be 8 letters, okay? So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And in the song, Doe, a deer, a female deer, we actually start on the C, Do. And so the musical scale letters are this way. When we're singing them in pitch, we go Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. And so when we sing Doe, a deer, we're going up those. So let's just sing that, just a little bit of vocalizing together, okay? So remember, we sit tall, okay? Or actually standing would be better, but I've positioned my camera so I'm sitting, so I won't move. But it's best to stand. And remember, we keep our body nice and straight, okay? Shoulders back a little bit. Remember, we breathe from our lungs here. So the breath comes in through our nose and out. Okay? Let's start. Doe, a deer, a female deer. Ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself. Far, a long, long way to run. So, a needle pulling thread. La, a note to follow. So, tea, a drink with jam and bread. That will bring us back to do, 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 do. A deer, a female deer. Ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself. Far, a long, long way to run. So, a needle pulling thread. La, a note to follow. So, tea, a drink with jam and bread. That will bring us back to do, 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 do. And that's how those notes that we're singing actually correspond with the musical alphabet starting on C. So we've talked about the note names. We've talked about where we're going to place the notes on a staff. And we've also talked about different notes and values. So as we're getting ready to actually place those notes on a staff, we need to understand that the staff actually has 2 parts. We have the top staff and the bottom staff. Top, treble, clef, which we're going to talk about today, and then the bottom staff is bottom bass clef. We're going to focus today on the top treble clef. All right? Now, this symbol here is what we call the treble clef. Okay? It's quite fancy. Sometimes it will be referred to as the G clef. Now, it wraps around the line, the staff line, which is a little premature. We haven't talked about this yet, but the G line of the staff. So we can often hear it called the G clef. For our purposes, we're going to call it the treble clef. Now, there's many ways to draw this. This sits on the clef and wraps around a lot of the staff lines. And it will hold within it, within the treble clef staff, the higher notes. So all the higher notes, the top of the, say, the piano or the top of the instrument notes, the higher notes that you play are placed in the top treble clef. So when we think of treble clef starting with a T, think of the word top and think of notes that are from top of your head, not bottom of your foot. So we have the bottom bass, which we'll discuss another time, but today the top treble clef. what you're going to receive at home is actually this piece of paper. Now, the treble clef has a few different ways that people sometimes write it. I was taught, and I find the easiest way to draw the treble clef is actually start at the heart of it, right in the center. And you do a big, all the way around, swirl, 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 right till you get to the front of it. Once you've got to the front of it, start heading up and head that direction. Once you've reached the top, do a loop, and then straight down like a little fish hook or the letter J. And that's how the treble clef is. My recommendation is that you take your finger and you trace over this quite a number of times. Then take your pencil and do it, and then maybe take a highlighter or something and go back over top so you get really familiar with how to draw the treble clef. All right? Now, the sheet that you're going to get at home this week is this sheet, and it will actually have numbers over here. So, and this will be numbered in the order that I recommended you draw it, where you start in the heart of it, in the center, and you swirl all the way around, go up, down, and make a J hook right down. It's the treble clef. So you'll draw some in these clefs, and then slowly the staff will get smaller and smaller, and you will fit them in there. Also do it the first time in pencil, then maybe go over top in pen, and then a third time over top in highlighter. And that will certainly give you lots and lots of practice with drawing that treble clef. All right, now there's a couple more things that I wanted to review with you, and that was, we had a game, remember you had to find your matching rest. So if you recall, every note has a corresponding or a matching rest. So if I were to pull out our notes here, we could then find out which rests go with it. So this is called the quarter note. How many beats? 1 beat. And this is the quarter rest. So they belong together, and they're both worth 1 beat. Then we had the half note, and we have the half rest. Now the way we tell this is it's going to be placed on the staff. That's where you'd find it written, but it looks like a hat, and it's worth 2 beats. Half rest, half note, worth 2 beats. Then we would have, very creatively named, the dotted half note. And what do you suppose its rest is called? No surprise. Dotted half rest. And there it is, 3 beats, 3 beats. Then we have our whole note. And it is the one that hangs down. It's a little bit heavier. And it is worth 4 beats. Alrighty. So now our 8th note also has a rest, and its rest actually looks a little bit like a number 7. So you have a 8th note and the 8th rest. So it has a little ball, and then you draw out for it and come down. So I'm just drawing one right underneath here. There it is. You see it, the little ball right over and down. And that is an 8th rest, just like an 8th note. So every note has a corresponding rest. Okay, now when you're reviewing these, you should be able to find, we had a worksheet that I gave you some time ago, and on it, it had all this information. So if you brought home your music binder, you should be able to find that. And that reviews everything that we just did as far as rest. Now it didn't have in the dotted half rest and the dotted half note, so you have a little extra information there. All right, so when you do your worksheet this week, you will be able to look up here and get some help, okay, from that worksheet that you had at home. Here are the notes, okay? Here are the number of beats that that note has. So for instance, that's a half note. How many beats is it worth? Go down here. Once you find the number, simply draw, connect a line to the answer there. Then on the bottom part here, we have I am a quarter note, I equal 1 beat, plus I am a quarter note, I equal 1 beat, which equals 2. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. Now, if you want to get really smart about this, and I do remember we worked on this a little bit, so we'll see how well you remember. You can actually give the answer in the equivalent note value. So the 2 beat note, which is a half note, you could answer quarter note, colored in, quarter note, colored in, answer, open note with a stem, half note. So you could do that. So there's two options of the way you can answer it, or maybe you can do both, okay? So that's what will be what you will work on at home, in addition to doing the treble clefs, okay? Tracing them and drawing them on that worksheet when you get home. We will move in to learning after the treble clef is placed on the staff, then how that identifies the notes in the treble clef. The notes, lines and spaces, line 1, line 2, in the treble clef is not the same as the notes that'll be in the bass clef, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's important to learn the treble clef and the note names that live in the lines, and those names are completely coming from that scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And of course it goes over and over again, because if you look at a piano or any size instrument, it has a lot of note names and a lot of notes to it. So we have to keep using the same musical letters over and over again. We also talked about the word piano, which means to play soft, and the word forte, which means to play loud. And we also talked a little bit about crescendos and diminuendos. Remember, if our notes were written over here and it opened up, it would be a crescendo getting louder. But if our notes were written over here and it was like this, closing, it would be a diminuendo, getting softer. And those create what we call dynamics in music, and that's piano and forte are part of that dynamics in music, and it makes it more interesting. So even as you're speaking, you'll find that your voice gets maybe louder and then it gets just a little bit softer, and that creates interest in as you're speaking for people listening, as opposed to speaking monotone all the way through. And so in music, of course, we use that same sort of principle. All right, so what you've got to work on, your treble clefs and your corresponding notes with note value, and then your music math. So hopefully you're fine with that. If you have any questions, you can let me know. I hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.